The navigation console exploded in a shower of sparks, sending Chief Engineer David Park stumbling backward into the bulkhead. Around him, the Wanderer's control room descended into chaos as alarms screamed, and red lights painted everything in crimson urgency. 200 colonists had been sleeping peacefully in cryopods just minutes ago, dreaming of their new home on a distant world, but now they were tumbling through space in a direction no human had ever traveled. "Talk to me, David." Captain Rebecca Walsh gripped her command chair as the ship lurched sideways. Her coffee had spilled across the console 20 seconds ago, but there were bigger problems than ruined electronics. The jump drive tore a hole in something it shouldn't have. David's hands flew across backup controls, his face illuminated by flickering displays. "We didn't jump to our target system. We jumped somewhere else entirely." Through the forward view screen, structures materialized that made Rebecca's breath catch in her throat. Massive rings of metal and light surrounded what could only be described as artificial planets, each one connected by bridges that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Ships moved between them, vessels so large they made Earth's largest spacecraft look like toys. "Are we seeing this correctly?" Navigation Officer Lisa Rodriguez zoomed in on the nearest structure. "That station is bigger than Luna." A pulse of energy washed over the Wanderer, and every system flickered. When the lights returned, their communications panel lit up with incoming signals from dozens of sources. The computer struggled to process the data, unable to recognize any of the transmission protocols. "Someone really wants to talk to us." Security Chief Anna Volkov activated defensive systems, though she knew their weapons were laughably inadequate against whatever civilization built these structures. The communications array sparked and hissed before a voice emerged, translated by software that had learned their language in seconds. "Unregistered vessel, you have entered sovereign space of the Galactic Collective. Identify your origin and authorization." Rebecca exchanged glances with her crew. They had prepared for first contact scenarios, but not like this. "This is Captain Rebecca Walsh of the human vessel Wanderer. We're from Earth in the Sol system. Our navigation system malfunctioned, and we appear to have arrived here by accident." Silence followed, stretching for nearly a minute. Then multiple voices erupted simultaneously, speaking over each other in what sounded like confusion and disbelief. Finally, one voice dominated the others. "Sol system has no registered civilization. Your vessel displays technology consistent with pre-warp species. Explain how you achieved faster-than-light travel." "We developed it ourselves over the past 50 years, Rebecca replied honestly. "We were heading to establish a colony when our drive malfunctioned." More silence, then a different voice, deeper and carrying an edge of authority. "Maintain your current position. Vessels are approaching to escort you to Border Station 12. Any deviation from your current trajectory will be interpreted as hostile action." 3 ships appeared, materializing from nowhere with drives that left no visible exhaust or distortion. They were sleek and predatory, bristling with weapons that tracked the Wanderer with mechanical precision. The smallest of them was twice the Wanderer's size. "I think we found our neighbors," David muttered, studying the escort ships with professional curiosity. "And they're way ahead of us technologically." The journey to Border Station 12 took 6 hours. During that time, the Wanderer's crew watched in amazement as they passed through a civilization that spanned entire solar systems. Worlds had been moved, stars harnessed, and space itself bent to accommodate countless species. Border Station 12 proved to be a massive rotating cylinder, generating artificial gravity through spin. Docking ports covered its surface like barnacles on a ship's hull. The escort vessels guided them to an isolated section, away from the main traffic. "This is quarantine docking," Honor observed. "They're keeping us separated from everyone else." A delegation waited in the docking bay, and Rebecca led a team of 5 to meet them. The airlock opened to reveal beings that challenged every assumption about alien life. One stood 3 meters tall with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbow patterns. Another appeared to be made of living metal, its surface flowing like mercury. A third resembled something between a bird and a reptile, covered in iridescent feathers. The tallest one spoke, its voice resonating through a translation device. "I am Ambassador Trell of the Orlathi. These are Representatives Kian of the Valorians, and Plex of the Mercantis." Trell gestured to the others. "You have entered the Galactic Collective, an association of 40 species spanning 12,000 years of civilization. Your presence here raises many questions." "We're willing to answer them." Rebecca stepped forward, keeping her posture open and non-threatening. "We didn't mean to intrude. We're explorers and colonists, not invaders." "Your intentions are irrelevant to classification," the metallic being, Plex, replied in a voice that sounded like chimes. "You possess faster-than-light capability, which grants you status above primitive species. However, your technology is crude, your vessel undersized, and your species unknown. The collective must determine what to do with you." "What are our options?" Rebecca asked carefully. "Quarantine," Kian, the crystalline warrior, spoke for the first time. "We return you to your system and forbid you from leaving it. This is standard procedure for pre-warp species who accidentally achieve FTL." Or, Rebecca sensed there was more. "Or we grant you observer status." Trell's expression was unreadable, but his tone seemed almost sympathetic. "You would be allowed to remain and learn about the collective. However, you would have no diplomatic rights, no trade privileges, and no voice in collective affairs. You would be guests, nothing more." Rebecca considered this. Being trapped in their home system meant isolation, but observer status meant being at the bottom of a hierarchy they didn't understand. Before she could respond, alarms erupted throughout the station. "Cooling system failure in Sector 7, a voice announced over the station's communication system. "Evacuate all personnel immediately. Thermal breach imminent in 4 minutes." The collective representatives looked at each other with what Rebecca interpreted as frustration. "The response teams are in training exercises," Plex stated. "They cannot reach Sector 7 in time." David was already moving toward a control panel. "How many people are in that sector?" "Approximately 3,000 civilians," Trell replied. "Why do you ask?" "Because we're going to help," Rebecca decided instantly. "David, can we access their environmental systems?" "Their technology is different, but the principles are the same." David's fingers flew across the alien interface. "I need parts from the Wanderer in about 3 minutes." "You have no authorization," Kian began, but Rebecca was already issuing orders to her crew. "We don't need authorization to save lives." Anna gathered tools and equipment. "That's just being human." The collective representatives watched in astonishment as the human crew sprinted through the station, improvising solutions with whatever materials they could find. Within minutes, they had jury-rigged a bypass system that would have taken collective engineers hours to approve and implement. The cooling system stabilized. 3,000 lives were saved. In the stunned silence that followed, Trell turned to Rebecca. "Your species does not wait for permission." "Not when people need help," Rebecca replied simply. Something shifted in the ambassador's expression. "Perhaps there is more to humanity than we initially assessed. I will recommend extended observation rather than quarantine." As the crew returned to the Wanderer, Rebecca knew they had just taken the first step into a much larger galaxy. They had proven humans could adapt and help. Now they needed to prove they belonged. 3 weeks of diplomatic limbo had taught Rebecca one thing about the Galactic Collective. They loved paperwork more than any bureaucracy on Earth. Forms existed for everything, from breathing station air to walking through corridors. The humans had filled out 847 different documents and still had no official status beyond temporary observers under evaluation. David floated in zero gravity near the Wanderer's engine compartment, studying collective ship designs through a borrowed datapad. Something bothered him about their vessels, something he couldn't quite articulate. They were powerful and elegant, but inflexible. Every ship served one purpose and one purpose only. "You look troubled." Trell drifted through the docking tube, his crystalline form reflecting the harsh work lights. The ambassador had become something of a friend over the past weeks, visiting the humans regularly despite the raised eyebrows from other collective members. "Your ships are masterpieces," David gestured at the data pad. "But they're like museums, beautiful, perfect, and completely unable to adapt." "Adaptation is inefficient," Trell replied, though his tone suggested he didn't entirely believe his own words. "Our designs have been refined over thousands of years." "That's the problem." David pulled himself to a viewport overlooking the busy station. "Those raiders you've been struggling with, they're winning because they don't follow your ancient playbook." Trell's silence spoke volumes. The raider attacks had intensified, hitting softer targets and civilian transports. Collective military forces responded with precision and overwhelming power, but always arrived too late. The raiders understood collective tactics better than the collective understood them. "The collective council debates whether to authorize pursuit into unclaimed systems," Trell said quietly. "The Valorians want aggressive action. The Mercantists want their cargo protected. The Syntherians want more data before committing resources. By the time they agree on a plan, the raiders have moved on." "What if we helped?" Rebecca appeared behind them, having listened from the corridor. "Unofficially, of course." "That would be highly irregular." Trell's voice carried a note that might have been hope. "You have no authorization for military action." "We're not military." Anna joined the conversation, her security background making her naturally interested in the tactical situation. "We're concerned citizens who happen to have a ship and a willingness to help." Trell studied the three humans. "If you were caught, I could not protect you. You would be expelled from collective space, and Earth would be quarantined." "Understood," Rebecca's voice was firm. "But if we do nothing, we'll sit here for months while bureaucrats debate our fate. Better to show what humans can do than wait for permission." The ambassador produced a data chip. "This contains raider activity reports and patrol schedules. I acquired it through channels I will not discuss. Use it wisely." 2 days later, the Wanderer slipped away from Border Station 12 during a shift change. Lisa navigated through the busiest traffic lanes, making their departure look routine. Once clear of the station's sensor range, she plotted a course to an asteroid field in an unclaimed system. "3 raider ships," Anna reported from sensors. "They're stripping cargo from a disabled freighter. The crew appears to be alive but captive." "Can we take 3 ships?" Lisa asked nervously. "Not in a straight fight." David studied the tactical display. "But we don't need to fight. We need to think like humans, not like the collective." Rebecca smiled. "David, can you use our mining lasers to destabilize some asteroids?" "The industrial cutters." David's eyes lit up with understanding. "They're not weapons, so the raiders won't see them as a threat until it's too late." The Wanderer drifted closer, powered down to minimal emissions. When they reached firing range, David targeted several large asteroids with precision cuts. The massive rocks began tumbling toward the raider formation, forcing the pirates to break formation. "Now," Rebecca commanded. Lisa pushed the engines to maximum, diving through the debris field toward the disabled freighter. Magnetic grapples shot out, connecting to the larger ship's hull. The Wanderer's engines strained as they began towing the massive vessel away from the raiders. "They've noticed us," Anna announced as the raider ships broke off from dodging asteroids. "All 3 are in pursuit." "Keep us in the asteroid field," Rebecca ordered. "Make them work for it." What followed was a desperate chase through tumbling rocks and ice. Lisa flew like she was threading needles, pushing the ship through gaps that seemed impossibly narrow. The raiders, with more powerful but less maneuverable ships, struggled to follow. One raider clipped an asteroid and spun wildly out of control. Its crew ejected in escape pods while their ship tore itself apart against another rock. The remaining 2 raiders slowed down, suddenly cautious. "They're breaking off," Anna reported. "They're not willing to risk their ships for one cargo hauler." The Wanderer limped toward collective space, towing the damaged freighter. A Valorian patrol ship intercepted them at the border, its commander clearly shocked to find humans responsible for a civilian rescue. "How did you?" the Valorian officer began. "We saw people who needed help." Rebecca cut the transmission before he could ask more questions. News of the rescue spread through Border Station 12 like wildfire. The saved crew were Quresh merchants, and their diplomatic corps was both grateful and confused. Humans had no authority to conduct rescues, yet they had saved Quresh lives without asking for payment or favors. Rebecca stood before an emergency tribunal expecting punishment. Instead, she found herself facing a room full of divided officials. Some were angry about the breach of protocol, but others looked impressed. A Quresh representative named Prella stepped forward. "Captain Walsh, you violated numerous collective regulations," she paused. "However, you also saved my sister and her crew." The Quresh formally request permission to sponsor humanity for provisional membership. The room erupted into debate. Sponsorship from a respected diplomatic species carried enormous weight, but it also set a precedent that worried conservative factions. Kian, the Valorian war chief, surprised everyone by speaking. "I wish to test these humans further. Let them join a task force hunting the raiders. If they prove valuable, they earn membership. If they fail, they leave." After hours of argument, the tribunal reached a compromise. Humans would work with a joint collective task force. Success meant provisional membership, failure meant expulsion. Rebecca accepted immediately. It was exactly the chance they needed. Within 2 days, the Wanderer joined 3 collective vessels: the Valorian warship Crimson Fang, the Mercantis intelligence ship Prophet Seeker, and the Quresh medical frigate Gentle Hand. The first coordination meeting revealed the challenge ahead. "We strike hard and fast," Dracker, the Crimson Fang's commander, declared. "We gather intelligence first," Prell of the Prophet Seeker countered. "We ensure no civilians are harmed," Yenna of the Gentle Hand insisted. The 3 alien captains argued for an hour, each pushing their species' preferred approach. Rebecca listened carefully, understanding that the collective's greatest strength, diversity, was also its greatest weakness when trying to coordinate action. "What if," she interrupted the argument, "we used all 3 approaches together?" The alien captains stared at her. Such synthesis was apparently not standard collective procedure. But Rebecca saw possibility where they saw only conflicting doctrines. "Explain," Dracker commanded. "Your ships each have different strengths." Rebecca pulled up tactical displays. "What if we built a plan that lets everyone do what they do best?" Skepticism filled the room, but curiosity won out. They agreed to hear her proposal. Simulation chambers aboard Border Station 12 rarely saw this much traffic. Crews from 4 different ships crowded the observation deck, watching as their captains prepared to test a human-designed tactical doctrine. Whispers filled the air in dozens of languages, most questioning whether primitive humans could teach anything to civilizations that had fought wars for millennia. Rebecca stood at the main control console, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that would have seemed like magic to her grandparents. Beside her, Dracker loomed like a mountain of crystal and muscle, his warrior instincts clearly skeptical of this entire exercise. "The simulation will begin in 30 seconds, the station's AI announced. "Scenario: Raider Supply Depot in Nebula Cluster, estimated 40 hostiles, civilian prisoners present. Objective is complete elimination of Raider threat with 0 civilian casualties." "An impossible scenario," Dracker rumbled. "Casualties are inevitable in war." "Then we don't fight a war," Rebecca replied. "We conduct a rescue operation that happens to involve removing raiders." The simulation initialized, throwing them into a swirling cloud of gas and dust. Sensors struggled to penetrate the interference, showing only fragmentary data about the raider base ahead. In traditional collective doctrine, this would trigger a withdrawal for better intelligence. "Prophet Seeker begin wide-spectrum scanning," Rebecca transmitted. "Focus on energy signatures and life signs." Prell's ship swept through the nebula, its advanced sensors slowly building a picture of the base. Confirmed, 43 raiders, 22 civilians. The detention facility is separated from the main base by approximately 300 meters. Crimson Fang, position for frontal approach, Rebecca continued. Make them think you're alone and conducting a standard patrol challenge. Drakker's ship powered up weapons and shields, broadcasting standard collective military protocols. Inside the simulation, raider ships scrambled to respond, just as Rebecca predicted. Gentle Hand, move into position behind that asteroid cluster, Rebecca ordered. Stand by for rapid evacuation. Yenna's medical frigate glided silently into place, using the debris as cover. Wanderer were infiltrating through the old mining tunnels, David announced from the human ship, cutting power to maintain stealth. The plan unfolded like clockwork. The raiders focused entirely on Drakker's ship, seeing only the expected collective response. They never noticed the Wanderer slipping through abandoned passages or the Gentle Hand preparing medical teams. Rebecca waited until all pieces were in position. Crimson Fang provoked them into launching fighters. Drakker's simulated ship fired a warning shot, and the raiders responded predictably. Their fighters poured out of the base, leaving the detention facility lightly guarded. Execute rescue, Rebecca commanded. Everything happened simultaneously. The Wanderer's team breached the detention facility. The Gentle Hand swooped in to evacuate civilians. The Crimson Fang engaged raiders who suddenly realized they'd been outmaneuvered. The Prophet Seeker jammed communications, preventing the raiders from coordinating. Complication, the AI announced. Raiders are attempting to destroy the detention facility rather than lose prisoners. This hadn't been in the original scenario. Drakker smiled grimly, expecting the human plan to collapse under unexpected pressure. Prophet Seeker, can you override their detonation systems? Rebecca asked. Attempting, Prell responded. I need 17 seconds. You have 12, Anna's voice came from the Wanderer. That's when the charges go active. Crimson Fang, fire on these coordinates, Rebecca transmitted targeting data. Precision shots only, create an exit route through the base structure. That's madness, Drakker protested, but his gunners were already executing the command. Explosions tore through the simulated base, carving a path from the detention facility toward open space. The Wanderer's team herded civilians through the chaos, while Prell's override command uploaded into raider systems. Detonation sequence disabled, Prell announced with obvious satisfaction. All civilians evacuated, Yenna reported. 0 casualties on our side. Raiders neutralized or fleeing, Drakker added, and Rebecca heard something new in his voice. Respect. The simulation ended with a complete success. 40 raiders captured or killed, 22 civilians rescued, no friendly losses. The observation deck erupted in surprised chatter. Drakker turned to Rebecca, his crystalline features somehow conveying approval. This was not standard collective doctrine. No, Rebecca agreed, but it worked. It worked because you used our strengths while covering our weaknesses, Prell added. The Mercantis Council will be most interested in this approach. Your species thinks differently than we do, Yenna observed. You see possibilities where we see only established procedures. That's because we're too young to know what's supposed to be impossible, David joked, but there was truth in his words. The success of the simulation changed everything. Word spread through the task force that human tactics might actually work. More importantly, the 4 captains began to see each other as teammates rather than competing representatives. There is a real target, Drakker announced 2 days later. A major raider base in an abandoned mining complex. Intelligence suggests 60 to 80 hostiles and at least 40 civilian prisoners. This is significantly more dangerous than the simulation, Trell warned Rebecca privately. If this mission fails, the conservative factions will use it as proof that humans are reckless and incompetent. Then we can't fail, Rebecca replied simply. The task force departed Border Station 12 with far less fanfare than their arrival. They traveled for 3 days through increasingly empty space, leaving behind the established trade routes and patrol zones. The mining complex ahead, Lisa announced, sensors showing multiple ships docked inside the asteroid. Thermal imaging confirms large life sign clusters, Anna added. Looks like they're using the old habitation modules as a prison. Rebecca brought up the tactical display, studying the target. This was real now, not a simulation. Real lives hung in the balance, both prisoners and their own crews. All ships execute the plan, she transmitted. Let's show the collective what humans learned from them. The Crimson Fang emerged first, broadcasting the expected patrol challenge. Inside the asteroid base, raiders scrambled to respond. The Prophet Seeker positioned for electronic warfare. The Gentle Hand prepared medical bays. The Wanderer slipped into an old mining shaft, engines barely above idle. Anna led a team of 12 into the base on foot, moving through passages that hadn't seen maintenance in decades. They found the detention area holding civilians from 6 different species. A mercantilist trader named Grell had organized the prisoners, keeping hope alive through weeks of captivity. We're human, Anna explained quickly. We're here with the collective task force. We're getting everyone out. Grell's eyes widened. Human? I've heard your species just arrived in collective space. We did, Anna smiled, but that doesn't mean we can't help. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. The raiders had detected their infiltration. Trap, one of the prisoners whispered. The raider leader, Krask, he always has traps. Anna's communicator crackled. This is Krask, a harsh voice announced. You have walked into my web, little rescuers. Surrender or I detonate charges throughout this base. Everyone dies. Rebecca's voice responded immediately. This is Captain Walsh. We're not surrendering. Then watch your people burn, Krask snarled. Dracker, Rebecca transmitted on the command channel. I need you to trust me completely for the next 5 minutes. The Valorian warrior's response came without hesitation. Humans have earned that much. What do you need? 5 minutes could feel like an eternity when lives hung in the balance. David stared at the detention facility's control systems, his mind racing through possibilities that would horrify any proper engineer. The explosives were linked to a dead man's switch, meaning someone had to keep the trigger held or everything would detonate. I can't disable them remotely, he admitted to Anna. The system is too simple. Simplicity is its strength. Outside the detention area, raider voices echoed through corridors. They were closing in, weapons ready. The prisoners huddled together, fear evident despite their attempts at bravery. Then we need someone on the inside, Anna replied. Someone who knows the system. A young raider appeared in the doorway, his weapon lowered. He looked barely into adulthood by any species standards. I know the system, he said quietly. My name is Finn. I helped install it. Anna's hand moved to her weapon. Why would you help us? Because I've been listening, Finn gestured to the prisoners. You treat them like people, you don't see them as cargo or leverage. The collective pushed me out because my species ranks too low in their hierarchy. He paused. But you're different, you're human. You judge by actions, not by species rankings. Can you disable the explosives? David asked urgently. Not disable, Finn corrected. But I can hold the trigger. That buys you time to evacuate. Rebecca's voice crackled over communications. 30 seconds until Dracker fires. Everyone needs to be ready to move. Finn took position at the control panel, his hands gripping the trigger mechanism. Go, I'll hold as long as I can. The Crimson Fang's main cannon tore into the asteroid with devastating precision. Dracker's gunners had calculated the exact angle to create an exit tunnel without causing total structural collapse. The base shuddered as rock and metal exploded outward. Simultaneously, the Prophet Seeker's electromagnetic pulse washed through the facility. Lights died, systems crashed, and the raiders' carefully maintained infrastructure became useless. Move, Anna shouted, leading prisoners through darkness toward the sound of crumbling rock. They ran through passages barely wide enough for single file, guided by emergency lights on their suits. Raiders stumbled in the darkness, confused and disoriented. Some tried to fight, but most fled toward their ships. Finn abandoned his post once the prisoners cleared the detention area, sprinting after them. 3 other raiders joined him, choosing rescue over their former comrades. Raiders helping prisoners, one of Drakkar's warriors asked in confusion. Anyone who helps save lives gets safe passage, Anna declared. That's the deal. The gentle hand waited at the new exit point, its medical bays open and ready. Yenna's team worked efficiently, treating injuries and providing comfort to traumatized civilians. Deep in the base, Krask refused to surrender. He gathered loyalists for a last stand against Valorian boarding parties. The battle was brief and brutal. Drakkar personally confronted the raider leader, and Krask died as he had lived, fighting. The task force regrouped in neutral space, taking stock of the operation. 2 civilians had died before the rescue arrived, killed by raiders in a fit of rage. 3 raiders died fighting Valorian warriors. No collective personnel were lost. By our standards, this is a remarkable success, Drakkar addressed the combined crews. The human tactical approach preserved more lives than any collective doctrine could have achieved. Prell added his assessment. Inefficient by mercantilist economic calculations, but effective by any meaningful measure. The human ability to synthesize multiple approaches into coherent action is noteworthy. Yenna spoke with obvious emotion. You focused on life above all else, even when it complicated your mission. That is a principle the collective claims to value but often forgets in practice. Grell, the mercantilist prisoner who had organized the others, requested permission to address the gathering. I must share something the collective knows but rarely discusses openly, he began. Raiders are a symptom, not a disease. Your rigid hierarchies push people to the margins. Those who cannot fit your established roles become outcasts. His words created uncomfortable silence among the collective crews. Grell continued, humans showed something different. They valued contribution over status. They worked with anyone willing to help, regardless of rank or species. Perhaps that is what the collective needs to evolve. News of the successful rescue spread throughout Border Station 12. The humans had proven themselves in combat and in compassion. Public opinion shifted noticeably in their favor. However, not everyone celebrated. Conservative factions within the collective saw human methods as dangerous disruption. The rigid hierarchies that had maintained order for 12,000 years were being questioned. Some species viewed this as liberation, others as chaos. Your case will be reviewed at the Grand Assembly, Trell informed Rebecca. This is unprecedented. The Assembly hasn't convened for a new species application in 800 years. Is that good or bad? David asked. It means the collective takes you seriously, Trell replied. Whether that leads to membership or exile depends on politics beyond my influence. Rebecca gathered her crew for a private meeting. We've proven we can fight and rescue. Now we must prove we can navigate bureaucracy and convince 40 different species that humanity deserves a place among them. We're explorers and engineers, not diplomats, Lisa pointed out. No, Anna corrected. We're humans, we adapt, that's what we do best. The journey to Collective Prime took 2 weeks. During that time, Rebecca prepared humanity's case. She studied collective history, learned about interspecies rivalries, and identified potential allies among the member species. The capital world appeared on their view screens, a testament to what united species could achieve. Continent-sized cities blended 40 different architectural styles. Orbital rings housed trillions of beings. Artificial suns provided perfect climate control. That's our future if we succeed, David murmured. That's our future when we succeed, Rebecca corrected. The Grand Assembly Chamber was ancient beyond human comprehension. Built when the collective had only 5 founding species, it had grown organically over millennia. Each species had their designated section, their voice in the galactic conversation. Humans were given a small platform at the center, where petitioners traditionally stood. Rebecca and her delegation took their positions, aware that billions of beings across the galaxy watched. Through live feeds, High Speaker Ralith called the assembly to order. The ancient being had witnessed the collective's growth from its inception. Their authority was absolute. Humanity petitions for membership, Ralith announced. Let those who support speak first. Prella stepped forward, representing the Qresh. Humanity saved my sister and countless others. They demonstrated compassion and courage. The Qresh sponsor their application. The mercantists see innovative potential in human trade practices. Prell added his support. The Valorian Reform faction recognizes human tactical brilliance. Drakker's voice echoed through the chamber. The Orlathi believe humanity brings necessary fresh perspectives. Trell concluded the initial statements. Then came the opposition. The Kryn argue that humans are genetically primitive, a representative declared. The Astrium Collective claims humans are too emotional. The hierarchy of Tall believes physical stature indicates worthiness. Most damaging, the Valorian Supremacy faction argued that human tactics were dishonorable, that proper warfare followed established rules. The debate raged for hours. Rebecca waited for her chance to speak, knowing that humanity's future depended on the next few minutes. Silence fell across the Grand Assembly as High Speaker Ralith gestured for Rebecca to approach. 40 species watched as she walked to the speaker's podium, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. She had 1 hour to convince civilizations millennia older than her own that humanity deserved to join them. Rebecca didn't discuss human technology or military achievements. Instead, she told stories. She described the Wanderer's original mission, 200 colonists seeking a new home among the stars. She explained the cooling system repair, how humans saw a problem and solved it without waiting for permission. She recounted the raider rescues, emphasizing not their tactics but their refusal to abandon those in need. "We're young," Rebecca admitted. "We make mistakes. We don't understand your ancient protocols or complex hierarchies, but we offer something your collective has lost over 12,000 years. We offer the willingness to try new solutions when old ones fail." The Kryn representative rose first with challenges. "Your species barely understands genetic engineering. How can you contribute to our scientific endeavors?" "We have 8 billion minds eager to learn," Rebecca replied. "Every human child grows up dreaming of the stars. Imagine what we could discover together." An Astrium questioner followed. "You base decisions on emotion. How can we trust your judgment?" "Emotion and logic aren't opposites," Rebecca countered. "Compassion drives us to find logical solutions that help everyone. Our emotions make us care enough to solve problems others consider acceptable losses." High Speaker Ralith raised a crystalline appendage. "Captain Walsh, answer honestly. What makes humans different from the 200 species we've denied membership over the centuries?" The chamber fell silent. Rebecca felt the weight of billions watching, waiting for her answer. "Nothing," she said simply, "except we showed up and tried to help." Gasps rippled through the assembly. "We didn't come seeking power or resources," Rebecca continued. "We arrived by accident and responded to what we saw. People needed help, so we helped. Systems failed, so we fixed them. Raiders threatened civilians, so we stopped them." She paused. "How many of those 200 rejected species did you turn away because they didn't fit your existing categories? How many solutions have you lost because you prize conformity over contribution?" The uncomfortable silence that followed told Rebecca she had struck something deep. Many assembly members shifted, recognizing truth they preferred not to acknowledge. Grell requested permission to speak as a witness. "I spent 3 weeks as a prisoner," he began. "I watched species who felt excluded from the collective. Raiders aren't all criminals by choice. Many are outcasts your rigid hierarchies created. Humans showed me that contribution matters more than classification." The assembly erupted into debate that lasted for hours. Conservative factions argued that standards existed for good reasons. Progressive factions countered that stagnation was its own danger. The human question became a proxy for larger arguments about the collective's future. Finally, High Speaker Ralith called for order. "I propose conditional membership. Humans would receive provisional status for 5 galactic cycles." The ancient being's voice carried authority that silenced all dissent. During this time, they participate in collective affairs but under observation. At the end, we vote on permanent membership based on their contributions. The conditions were announced. Humanity must establish formal diplomatic relations. They must contribute to 3 major collective initiatives. They must maintain peaceful relations with all member species. Most challenging, they must help resolve one long-standing unsolved problem. Rebecca requested a recess to consult Earth's leadership via quantum communication. The response came from UN Secretary-General Adrian Foster. "Accept the terms. Isolation would doom us to irrelevance. The risks are real, but the alternative is worse." Rebecca returned to the assembly. "On behalf of humanity, I accept these conditions." The vote was called. Species representatives signaled their positions through ancient protocols. 24 supported, 11 opposed, 5 abstained. Humanity had provisional membership in the Galactic Collective. The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Some species applauded this historic moment. Others protested the decision. Many simply watched with uncertainty about what this meant for the future. That evening, as celebrations continued, Trell approached Rebecca with classified information. "You must know about the unsolved problem chosen as your test," he explained quietly. "It's called the Silent Zone. 50 years ago, 17 colony worlds went dark simultaneously. Collective expeditions sent to investigate never returned." "What happened to them?" David asked. "Unknown," Trell replied. "The last message from a rescue ship said, 'It's not empty here, something is watching.' After 3 expeditions disappeared, the collective quarantined the region. No one has entered in 35 years. And we're supposed to solve this?" Anna's skepticism was evident. "Conservative members chose it specifically because they expect you to fail," Trell admitted. "Success would prove human worth beyond question. Failure would justify expelling you from the collective." Rebecca studied star charts showing the Silent Zone, a region of space where stars seemed dimmer as if something absorbed their light. "How long do we have to prepare?" 3 months, Trell replied. "The Assembly expects a formal expedition with full documentation." The next weeks were frantic with preparation. Earth sent a second wave of volunteers and equipment. The Wanderer underwent major upgrades in collective shipyards. 2 new human vessels, Pioneer and Horizon, joined from Earth. Allied species offered support. Drakkar volunteered. The Crimson Fang, Yenna provided the gentle hand. Even the Syntherians contributed their research vessel Logic Prime. "We're assembling a proper fleet," David observed as ships gathered at Border Station 12. Strange reports began arriving from near the Silent Zone boundary. Passing ships reported instrument malfunctions and crew experiencing disturbing dreams. Whatever existed in that region affected more than just technology. Trell shared an ancient legend one night. Before the founding species united, there were stories of the darkness that thinks, beings that existed before our civilizations. He paused. No one took the legends seriously until the Silent Zone appeared. "You think the legends are real?" Lisa asked. "I think something in that zone destroyed 3 collective expeditions," Trell replied. "Something the best military and scientific minds couldn't understand." The fleet consisted of 6 ships from 4 species. 800 crew members prepared to enter a region that had swallowed everyone who tried before them. Morale was uncertain, fear mixed with determination. Rebecca addressed the combined crews before departure. "We face the unknown, that's frightening, but remember why we're here. 17 colony worlds went silent. Millions of beings simply vanished. They deserve answers. Their families deserve closure. The collective needs to understand what threatens them." She paused. Humans are good at facing the impossible. We've been doing it since we first looked at stars and wondered if we could reach them. We're not alone now. We have allies who trust us. Together, we'll solve this mystery. The fleet departed, heading toward darkness. As they crossed into the silent zone, instruments began registering anomalous readings. Navigation systems drifted. Crew members reported feeling observed. "Something is watching," Lisa whispered. "Then we'll find out what," Rebecca replied, "and we'll find out why." The planet Haven's Rest looked peaceful from orbit. Cities stood intact. Atmospheric readings were normal, yet 40,000 Mercantis colonists had simply vanished without explanation. David stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, studying readings that made no sense. There was no sign of violence, no indication of evacuation, nothing but empty buildings and silent streets. "Landing parties report the same across all sites," Anna transmitted from the surface. "Meals left. Half-eaten, vehicles running, doors open. It's like everyone just stopped what they were doing and walked away." Rebecca reviewed the last administrator's logs. The entries grew increasingly erratic. Colonists hearing voices, seeing shadows, forgetting who they were. The final entry sent chills down her spine. "We understand now. It wants us to understand. We're going to the source." Attached coordinates pointed deeper into the silent zone. As the fleet traveled toward those coordinates, crew members began experiencing psychological effects. A Valorian warrior became convinced his companions were imposters. A Syntherian AI started questioning its own existence. Humans weren't immune. Several reported vivid nightmares of an immense, ancient presence watching them. Raymond Hughes discovered something crucial. Species with strong emotional connections resisted the effects better. Humans, with their emphasis on personal relationships, were somewhat protected. He implemented a buddy system. No one stayed alone, everyone checked in regularly with their team. "Talking about our fears actually helps," one crew member reported. "It keeps us grounded in reality." The Valorians initially mocked this approach as weakness, but they stopped mocking when it proved essential to maintaining sanity. At the coordinates, they found something impossible. A massive organic structure floating in space, larger than any ship, older than any known civilization. It existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions they couldn't perceive. "This isn't technology," the Logic Prime announced. "This is a living entity." "Can we communicate with it?" Rebecca asked. Traditional methods failed completely. Radio, light, electromagnetic signals produced no response. Trell suggested something radical, direct mental contact. "Telepathy research was abandoned as too dangerous," he explained, "but conventional communication clearly won't work." Rebecca volunteered immediately. "If this thing destroyed 3 expeditions by accident, we need to establish communication before it does the same to us." With Raymond's medical support and a team of volunteers, Rebecca attempted contact using combined collective psychic technology and human meditation techniques. The experience overwhelmed her. The entity's consciousness was vast, ancient, and completely alien. She perceived fragments of thought, loneliness spanning millions of years, desperate attempts to communicate that accidentally destroyed unprepared minds. Awareness of countless civilizations rising and falling. The entity wasn't hostile. It was isolated and desperate for contact. When Rebecca regained consciousness, hours had passed. "It's called a watcher," she explained weakly. "One of several ancient beings that observe younger species. It became separated from its kind and has been trying to communicate for eons." "The colonists?" Yenna asked gently. "Not dead," Rebecca replied. "Integrated into its consciousness, it didn't mean to harm them, it just doesn't understand how fragile we are." The fleet faced an impossible choice. The colonists couldn't be extracted in any traditional sense. They were part of the entity now. Conservative factions argued for destroying it. It was too dangerous. "No," Rebecca said firmly. "We teach it how to communicate safely. That solves the problem permanently." "That's impossible," a Valorian officer protested. Humans specialize in impossible, David replied. We just need to think differently. They proposed using the logic prime as an intermediary. Being artificial, the Syntherian AI could interface with the entity's consciousness without suffering psychological damage. It was risky. The AI might be destroyed or permanently altered. I volunteer, the logic prime announced. This discovery could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness and dimensional physics. The risk is acceptable. They constructed a specialized communication array combining technologies from all 4 species. The logic prime established connection with the entity. For the first time in millions of years, the Watcher could communicate clearly. It shared knowledge, the location of other Watchers, the nature of dimensional physics, the history of civilizations that predated the collective. More importantly, it agreed to release the colonists' consciousness now that it had another way to interact with the galaxy. The extraction process took weeks. Not all colonists could be saved. Some had integrated too deeply, but 60% were successfully recovered. Those who remained chose to stay willingly with full understanding of what they were becoming. The fleet returned to Collective Prime as heroes. They brought recovered colonists, proof of the entity's existence, and new scientific understanding. More significantly, they demonstrated that cooperation between species, especially including human approaches, could achieve what seemed impossible. The Grand Assembly reconvened. Even species who initially opposed humans couldn't deny their success. The human approach, emphasizing emotional connection, unconventional thinking, and refusing to accept impossible solutions, had proven essential. The final vote came. 31 species supported full membership, 6 opposed, 3 abstained. Humanity joined the Galactic Collective permanently. The Kryn and other conservative factions were furious, but bound by the decision. However, their influence had diminished. Humanity's success empowered reform-minded factions throughout the collective. Changes began immediately. The collective reassessed previously rejected species. Rigid hierarchies started evolving. Finn's rehabilitation program helped former outcasts find purpose. The galaxy was adapting. 1 year after their accidental arrival, Rebecca stood on the Wanderer's bridge. They were escorting Earth's first official colony ship to a collective-approved world. Her crew now included members from several species, working together seamlessly. "Captain, we're receiving a distress call," Lisa announced. "Human ship Pioneer reporting unusual phenomena." Rebecca smiled. This was humanity's new normal, not just surviving in the galaxy, but actively shaping its future. The Watcher entity sent a final message through the logic prime. "Humans aren't the first young species to change older civilizations," it explained. "Throughout the universe, species like you serve a purpose. You prevent stagnation. Civilizations that embrace change survive. Those that resist it fade." David studied the message thoughtfully. "We're catalysts." "We're humans," Anna corrected. "We see problems and we solve them. We meet people and we help them. That's who we are." Rebecca looked at the stars ahead. "We came accidentally, seeking a new home. Instead, we found family and purpose. We showed the galaxy that being underestimated is an advantage when you're determined to prove everyone wrong." She paused, considering their journey from lost colonists to galactic citizens. "Humanity isn't a superpower because of technology or military might. We're a superpower because we refuse to accept that any problem is truly unsolvable. We adapt, we persist, and we care. That might be the most powerful combination in the universe." The Wanderer accelerated toward new adventures. Behind them, Earth prepared to send thousands more humans into the galaxy. Ahead, mysteries and challenges awaited, but Rebecca felt no fear. Humanity had proven themselves once. They would do so again and again. "What's our heading, Captain?" Lisa asked. "Toward the future," Rebecca replied, "wherever that takes us." The galaxy stretched out before them, infinite and full of possibility. Humans had accidentally stumbled into a civilization that spanned millennia, and in just 1 year they had become essential to its evolution. They were no longer outsiders looking in. They were part of something larger than any single species. And that was just the beginning.